Are you recording?
Yeah.
Somehow I think that's going to end up on the beginning of an episode somewhere.
You never know.
You're listening to the Real Christian Manliness podcast with Isaac and Tim Ingram. Let's get manly!
All right, all of you wonderful gentlemen out there in the land of Christian manliness.
And they are
We
wonderful.
hope this we just got to butter them up a little bit. Maybe they'll tell others about the podcast if we make them feel good. And anyway, welcome to another episode of the Real Christian Manliness podcast. If this is your first time listening, my name is Tim Ingram, and the other voice you heard is my brother Isaac. How are you doing this wonderful afternoon?
I'm doing wonderful on this wonderful afternoon. Babysitting.
Oh.
But fathers don't babysit, they parent. So I've been parenting today.
It is the most wonderful time of the year. So
According to many.
it's going to be a wonderful podcast, I am sure.
We need to have a wonderful count.
Somebody out there listening, let us know how many times we say the word wonderful in this podcast. So how is life in Montana?
Good. We graduated.
You're supposed to say wonderful.
You got to give me a chance. I was going to say we graduated 74 wonderful cadets from the academy on what was it, Saturday. And so now I have about 3 weeks off of work, so I get to parent a lot now.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right. I'm sure that's going to get old pretty quick if we keep going down that path.
It'll just stay wonderful.
Well, anyway, as we try to move off of this wonderful train we're on right now into something else. Oh man, once you get stuck in a rut, it's hard to get out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which segues us into our topic for today.
You're a smart one.
We might be getting good at this. I don't know if we're getting good. We might be getting not bad at this whole podcasting thing.
Now here's some trivia. How do you spell segue?
I don't know, but I saw a chimpanzee riding on one time.
Chimpanzee riding on a Segway.
Hold on, I gotta find it. It's like a French word. Like there's a Segway, like the two-wheel thing.
It's a different spelling?
Yeah, it's hold on. I'm googling it.
Real Christian Manliness podcast. It's fun and educational.
Okay, so the Segway that you ride on with the chimpanzees is Segway. We've all seen that. But to segue is Segue. So,
All right.
the definition is the noun form is an uninterrupted transition from one piece of music or film scene to another, which people use that to just transition from one topic to another. So, there you go.
Well, let's segue then.
What's that?
I said, let's segue then.
We'll go ahead and segue from being stuck in a rut.
Yeah, we were stuck in a rut there, and then we got stuck in a different rut trying to find out how to spell segue. So let's move out of this rut and try to get back on the straight and narrow and cover the topic that we're going to talk about today. And I guess we don't really know yet when this episode will air. It'll either be before the beginning of the year or after the beginning of the year. Either way, I believe it's a good topic for us to discuss as we move in to 2018. And we're going to talk today a little bit about living our lives on purpose. Winston Churchill said, "It's not enough to have lived. We should determine to live for something." So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I think probably one of the big things, and not it's a generalization, but one of the things that's kind of characteristic of males nowadays is a lot of them just kind of fly by the seat of their pants. They just kind of go with the flow. They like to chill, I guess. You know, don't really have a purpose. I mean, some guys, they come out of the womb and they know exactly what they're going to do with their lives. Others, not so much. And I know I've been guilty at times of this. I think Isaac maybe has been guilty at times of
absolutely
just kind of going with the flow. And it is a conscious decision to decide, and even if you don't know what you're going to do with your life, to live day by day with a purpose and with purpose, and not just, well, I'll wake up and see what happens. And it's something, as we go into the new year, a lot of people set goals and set, what's the word I'm looking for? Resolutions.
Resolutions.
Yeah. New Year's resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that helps at the beginning of the year, but the typical saying is that just wait 2 weeks and everybody's going to be off there. If they're still on their resolution by February, it's an achievement.
Yeah, I read in a book, I think it was Finished by John Acuff earlier this fall. I think the statistic that he said, he did a focus group on, I think, 300 or 400 people that set goals, and he said that like 92% of people who set New Year's resolutions fail at them, like they don't complete them by the end of the year. So 92, that means 8% successfully complete their New Year's resolutions.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as we talk about life and being a man, I think part of making the changes in our lives that we want to see, it's going to involve doing things on purpose, and it's going to involve having a plan, getting up every day and following through on those plans. There's all kinds of stuff throughout the Bible. Maybe not necessarily with the word purpose in it. One that does stick out to me, where the word purpose shows up, is in Daniel 1:8, where it says that Daniel purposed in his heart that he wouldn't defile himself with the portion of the king's meat. And if you're familiar with the Bible, you know what that was, what that situation was surrounding that story. And it talks about the purpose he had in not defiling himself, but you can apply that resolve and that decisiveness that he had in his life to all kinds of areas in your life. Whatever the situation is that you're in, wherever you might find yourself, whether it's reading your Bible more, whether it's being a better father, being a better husband, being a better church member, being a better employee at your job, whatever your need is in your life, having that purpose like Daniel did, that we find in Daniel 1:8, is going to be a driving factor and a key factor in making the changes at the beginning of this next year that we want to make in our lives. I also think of, I'm saying a lot right now. Maybe I'm not as good at this podcasting thing as I thought I was.
You're doing wonderful. You're doing wonderful.
Pride came before that fall. Anyway, so I think of Psalm, the first chapter of Psalm, where it says, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night." And it says in verse 3, "And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper." And verse 4 kind of talks about what we already mentioned, said the ungodly are not so, but they are like the chaff that the wind driveth away. So that kind of puts an image in my mind of what I want to be as a man and as a Christian man. I want to be like that tree that's planted by the rivers of water. I want to bring forth fruit. It says my leaf's not going to wither away, and that whatever I do shall prosper. And all that comes from back in verse number 1, where it says, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners." So it's telling us that that person has made a decision of where he's going to walk and who his counsel is going to be, where he's going to stand. And on the opposite side, like we already said, if you don't make those decisions, if you don't purpose to do what you want to do in life, you're going to be like the chaff, and you're just going to be driven away by the wind.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and it reminds me of a verse in James that talks about being, driven by the wind and tossed. It's just because I think it's talking about doctrine in that particular verse, but
right.
if we're not rooted to doctrine, then we're going to be driven. But the same principle applies to if we don't have a clear purpose. Now, and a lot of people, they think that they have to have a decided purpose that, in 50 years I'm going to do this. And some people can do that, but day by day, week by week, month by month, that purpose may change or go a little bit this way, a little bit that way, due to circumstance, due to God's leading, due to different things. But the point is that you have a purpose and that you do things on purpose. When we took the Dave Ramsey course on budgeting and finances and things like that, he said you need to have a budget. And it's not going to be the same throughout the rest of your life. It's not a set thing. It's going to change month to month. But the point is that you put that dollar where you want every month. You're not going to look up and say, where did that dollar go? And the same thing applies to, your purpose in life. What did I do with this time? Where did I take a stand? Where did I, consciously give ground or compromise or, whatever. And so the point in being a man is that you live life on purpose. You live life according to a plan that you've set. That way, you know where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. So through the help of the internet and Google, I've found the rest of this podcast, or some of the things we're going to talk about now, as we segue again into something else. I found this thing on the internet that was 7 tips or ways to help us live on purpose. And I think a lot of them are good. Some of them might be a little harder to achieve. But the first one is, and you can Google this yourself if you want to look at it, is 7 ways to live a life on purpose. The first one that it mentions is live by your beliefs and your values. So I think that part of that, what we're trying to do with this Continue Discipleship program, we're trying to help us reaffirm and reset some of the things that we believe and what our beliefs and what our values are. And that, in turn, will help us decide what our purpose is going to be. Once you know what you believe and once you know what your values are, that's a main factor in deciding what your purpose is going to be, not only long-term in life, but in the day-to-day aspect of your life. If you've decided that you're going to be a real Christian man, or you're just going to be a Christian, even if you're a lady listening to the podcast, those values and those beliefs are going to be the deciding factor of how you live your life day to day. And if you don't make those decisions, you don't decide what you believe, decide what your values are, then situations arise and things come up, and you haven't decided how you're going to react to those situations and those things that affect us day to day.
Yeah, and one of the things that is a problem for lots of people is that whenever trouble or problems come around, and that you're forced to make some sort of decision, you don't have time to sit back and say, all right, what would my values do in this situation? What would my belief do in this situation? Or what are they? And so you have to kind of know before those things go. A lot of times decisions are almost on autopilot if you have a solid understanding of what your beliefs are. One of my beliefs is that it's wrong to drink alcohol, and that's one of my things that I've resolved that I would never do. And so whenever that opportunity presents itself, or, we're in a situation where there's alcohol, which is rare these days, but I don't have to make that decision, and, my wife and I were talking about, faithfulness in a marriage last night. And since I've decided I'm going to be faithful to my wife, number one, you shouldn't be put in a situation where you shouldn't put yourself in a situation to where you even have to make that decision. But, if you're put into some, drastic situation where some, woman is throwing herself at me or at you, you've already decided that I'm not going to do that. I'm going to remain faithful to my wife. And so the importance of deciding your beliefs and your values is that you don't have to make those decisions a lot of times if those things are clearly defined.
Right. So I think that's for me, that's one of the deciding factors. And it is, as you begin the year, setting goals and resolutions for what you want to accomplish in 2018, or if you're listening to this 5 years from now and you find this on the internet, whatever year it is you're about to move into, you have to decide what it is you believe, what it is you want to accomplish, what your values are. And then the second thing that this list I found says is you have to set priorities. So once you've decided what it is that you want to accomplish or what it is that you believe, what your purpose in life is, you're then allowed to set your priorities, decide what the most important things are for you that you need to do to accomplish those things. And not only you set priorities, you can get rid of the things that aren't going to help you accomplish those things. So if your priority or your goal, or what you Isaac mentioned, Dave Ramsey and budgeting, if your goal is to save money, well, then you know that the priority is not going out to McDonald's or going out to eat with your friends every time they ask.
Yeah.
If your goal is to lose weight, you're going to set your priorities. Also, you don't want to go to McDonald's if you're trying to lose weight.
2 for 1. Yeah, 2 for 1 illustration.
Yeah. So I'm not anti-McDonald's. I actually like McDonald's a little bit.
Well, I just saw that there's a vegan burger coming out for those of you who are like the Big Macs, and that you like the
at McDonald's.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't read the whole article. I just saw a headline.
Yeah,
and so
I guess I can't go to McDonald's anymore.
So if Pat Barker's listening, then you can have your McDonald's.
Well, I guess McDonald's off my list because I can't abide by that. I've set my belief that eating meat is the way to go, so I'm not gonna walk with sinners.
Yeah, and the one thing, the first point talked about setting your beliefs and deciding what those are, and the second one relates to this one, is that sometimes we've decided to do certain things, and occasionally those things might conflict, and it might not be a doctrinal thing or whatever, but you set your sights on something, and something else in your life might conflict, and so that's where priorities come in. What has the highest priority? It reminds me of whenever I worked as a waiter at a breakfast restaurant, and my manager sat me down and says, you have to prioritize things when you're working here. And at that restaurant, hot food was the number one priority. If there's hot food in the window, you deliver it. And then next to that was, something like greeting, customers that have just sat down. And then she went through this long list, and she said, if you set these priorities and you list these, 1 through 7 or 1 through 10 of all the things that you're doing here at the restaurant, you're never going to have to know what you need to do next, because you said, hey, I got a new customer that sat down, a new guest, but there's hot food. What do? It's easy. You do number 1. And so it's similar in your own life, is that you have to set the priorities. Am I supposed to work out, or am I supposed to go work and earn a paycheck? Which is the most important? After that, am I gonna read my Bible this morning, or am I gonna watch YouTube all day? Same thing. So that's where the priorities come in.
Yeah. So live by your beliefs and values. Set your priorities. The next one says follow your passion. And I don't know exactly how to explain this one or where exactly it fits in. My suggestion or what my thought would be is that you want your goals and your beliefs and your values to become your passion. Uh, I mean, a lot of times you can be passionate about things that really don't amount to anything as far as you reaching your goals, and they really don't amount to anything as far as living your life according to your beliefs. Like for me, sports and soccer and different things of that nature are my passions, or music might be my passion. Uh, but they don't necessarily end up where get sitting around watching ESPN or Fox Sports all day isn't going to help me achieve, and it's not setting my priorities the way they should be to accomplish my goals. So what I would say as far as that one is that you want to make your passions what you believe and what your goals are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this one's a little difficult for me as well. I do believe that you should be passionate about what you're doing. I recall listening to a podcast with Mike Rowe, the guy that does the dirty jobs, and he basically was saying that that passion is somewhat of a myth, in that you don't want to just follow your passion blindly. Because like Tim said, some things are unprofitable that you're passionate about. And so those things should become hobbies and they shouldn't become a priority. But he did say is that you need to find something profitable that you can do, whether it's work or making a difference in the world or something like that. And he said you need to learn it and you need to do it well. And there's a pride that comes along with doing something well. And in time, that will become your passion. If you pick up the guitar and you stink at it, but you work at it for weeks and months, and then you start sounding good at it, then you start feeling good about yourself and accomplished, and that can develop into a passion. So I do believe in following your passion, but your passion has to be something that's worthwhile. Your passion can't be trolling people on Facebook. It can be fun, but it's not very beneficial to you or the world.
I'm tempted to be a troll sometimes, so I can't follow that passion as much as I would like to.
Does that make
anyway,
sense?
Moving on to the next.
Does that make sense? That whole passion thing that I said.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it was just another way of restating what I was saying. Is that you find something that lines up with what you believe and what your values, what your goals are, and you become passionate about reaching those goals.
Yeah.
And those aspects of life. The next one, and we've talked about this before on the podcast. It says achieve balance, and we know that achieving perfect balance is probably a myth as well. But you always want to be working towards that and trying to balance your life as much as possible, especially the way the world works today, where you have to work 40, 50, 60 hours sometimes to provide for your family, and then you have church life, and then you have kids to raise, then you have ministries that you might be involved in, podcasts you might be hosting. You have to try to balance that stuff as much as possible. If you get off balance and you're just working nonstop, then your family suffers, and your church suffers, your kids suffer. On the other hand, if you could be the most perfect dad in the world and you're always with your kids and you make it to every event, your job might suffer, and you might not end up not being able to provide for your family the way you're supposed to. I mean, if you're lucky and hit the lottery, or you're just a trust fund baby, or whatever the situation might be, you might be able to do that. But for most of us, we want to balance our lives in a way that where we give our job the right amount of priority, we give our family the right amount of priority, we give our church the right amount of priority. And that's something that we have to do on purpose. It's something that we have to be conscious about.
Yeah.
If we don't.
Yeah, and what I was going to say, sorry for cutting you off, but
oh, that's fine.
The balance issue for me is that I think of a tightrope walker. And when you look at a tightrope walker, you don't see them walking straight forward like they're on a sidewalk. You always see them, tilting to one side or the other. and I believe it's absolutely true in your life, is that if you're trying to do anything substantial in life, raise a family, be successful in a career, go to school, and work out, and all these different things, I believe that you'll always have more to do than you have the time, and you'll always have more responsibility than sometimes you have the ability to do. And so you're always going to be leaning one way or the other. I think of earlier this summer, and earlier in the spring of this year, I was working towards running a half marathon. And so I focused a lot of time on working out and running and eating and all this different stuff. And so, and I did that, and I began to run after that race. But come August, I had a baby. And, I didn't have a baby. My wife had a baby. But we had a baby. And then about a month later, later that exact month, I started going full-time to school and full-time at work. And so the last 4 or 5 months, basically my working out has been almost non-existent. And so it's because I've been adjusting my balance to focus on those other aspects of life. And so, life's going to shift and change. And so your priorities are going to shift and change a little bit. And so that's the tension of trying to find balance, is that you're not going to achieve perfect balance. You're always going to be adjusting, one way or another, depending on the demands that are in front of you.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and move on through these next 3 points real quick. We don't want to ramble on forever. I'm not sure how long we've been talking. We've been going for a little while. Achieve balance. Next one says feel content.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
So I understand this, but I also see. So I think it's important to be content with the progress you make. I heard a guy preach a message one time. He said it's not about how high you go; it's about the direction you're going. A lot of times you can measure yourself to what somebody else is doing, or you can look at other people's lives and see where they're at and not be content with what's going on in your life. So I think the main factor you want to look at is, are you making progress towards your goals? Are you being purposeful about how you're living your life, and be content with that. To some degree, I would say be content with that, but also always be striving for more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And real quick, I used to have Philippians 4:11 as my last verse. It talks about whatsoever state I am therewith to be content. And that was kind of as a missionary's kid, and I was focusing on the state, like a geographical location. But the content part is very important, and you're exactly right. We shouldn't be satisfied and settle and just say, here I am, I'm not going to do anything else, I'm content. I don't think that's accurate, but we should be content with whatever progress we make, as long as we are making progress. I think it's more like you shouldn't beat yourself down if you don't have what the next guy has, or you shouldn't be thinking about, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. And, and I have trouble with that a lot of times, because there's a lot of cool things out there and a lot of things I want to do, a lot of things I want to have, but I need to make sure I'm content with all the, the family and the blessings and everything that God has, especially, with the new beautiful baby and my amazing wife. I need to be content with that, and I'm very happy with that, and not want the newest gadget all the time.
So the next point in this little article we found says make a difference, and I would personally maybe change that to find the ways that living on purpose is making a difference. When you start doing things on purpose, you're gonna see results, and you're gonna see ways that living on purpose is making a difference in your life. I mean, for me, I mentioned it before. This year I've lost some weight. Unfortunately, I put a little bit back on since Thanksgiving. But anyway, so
it happens.
So for me, the weight loss is going to be a main focus beginning of next year. But whenever I go to the store and I buy the food, and I go home and I cook the food, and this is all stuff that I purpose to do. And if I'm just flying by the seat of my pants, I'm just going to go through the nearest drive-through and grab food. But whenever I go to the store and I buy the food and I bring it home and I cook the food and I take my lunches with me to work, I see the results and I see the difference that it makes in my life. So what I would encourage those listening to is, once you start living on purpose and once you start doing things for a reason, look and find the ways that those things are making a difference in your life and maybe in the lives of people around you and your family's life, and use those as motivation to keep doing what you're doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you're right. I think this point is more about others than yourself. It, just in my opinion, is that when you live on purpose, you need to focus on making a difference in the world around you and in others. We can't be self-centered and all those things. And I think that it's the recipe for having a more fulfilled life. It is focusing on others and making a difference outside of other people. Volunteering at your church or in your community, or striving to be a good parent and making a difference in their life. Spending time with your family and your wife and focusing on that. And I think that's what this point is more focused on, is that you need to just make a difference outside of yourself, and you'll have a more fulfilled and purposeful life.
So the last one we'll cover real quick, to me this is a huge one as well. Very important for everyone, is to live in the moment. It's real easy to get caught up thinking about the future and thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next year. It's so important to live in the moment and to purposefully live each day on purpose. That's a big thing as far as setting goals and living on purpose. Is you want to, especially if you're trying to achieve something big, it's easy to get discouraged by looking at what you have to accomplish. And what living in the moment will do is, I'm going to take care of today. I'm going to take care of tomorrow when it happens. And that goes a long way as to reaching your goals and reaching the purpose that you've set for yourself. And also, Isaac mentioned drinking earlier. To me, one of the biggest things about not drinking is being able to live in the moment and being able to remember the moment, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
That's what I've always told a lot of people. Why don't you drink? It's like, I like to be able to experience everything that life has to offer, and I don't want my senses dulled to what I'm going through and what I'm living in the moment.
Yeah. Another point, and you're exactly right with the drinking, but another point to this one is if you're living on purpose and you have a plan in life, you need to let that take care of itself, because if you're really living on purpose, you've broken that down into smaller daily and weekly steps, and so you need to focus on those and live in those. But it's also just being present with whoever you're with. And I'm the worst at this, of being on my phone, and no matter what I'm doing, it seems like I'm always checking something on there, and there's a lot of stuff going on in my life that I feel like I need to check all the time, and I need to work on that. And so you need to just live in the moment and be present with whoever you're at. If you're by yourself, that's one thing, but if you're at dinner with your wife or dinner with friends, or spending time with people, you need to just get rid of that thing and put it away. And I need to work on it this year. But I think that's an important part of being living in the moment.
Yeah, well, hopefully, what we've talked about and what we've discussed, some of the Bible verses we read at the beginning, and some of these points that we've covered will help you guys that are listening. I know for me, I want 2018 to be a productive year. I reached some goals this last year that I wanted to hit, and it improved my life and my lifestyle. But there were other places where I didn't do as much as I would like to. So for me, 2018, I want to live every day on purpose and to set the goals that I want to reach, and to not waste a year of my life just being blown around like the chaff, like Psalm says.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this was a blessing and a help to anybody that's listening. If there's anything we can help you with, please be sure to contact us, reach out to us, ask us questions. We're so thankful for those that listen. We've gotten some feedback from some guys that we know, but if you're out there and you don't know us personally, we want to hear from you too. And if we're helping you, we'd like to hear that. Encourage us in the fact that we're doing something that is helping you in your life. That's the whole reason Isaac wanted to start this, was to help men become better Christian men. So, I encourage you to join me this next year in living a purposeful life and reaching goals and trying to be the best Christian man possible. I don't have a family. For you guys out there that do have families, be a better Christian man for your family, for your church, and ultimately for your Lord, that you would be what He would have you to be. Yeah. Isaac, you want to add anything?
I was just thinking of a quote, and I don't know if it directly applies, but I saw a quote today that said, "It doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt anymore if you limp forward or limp backwards. Life's gonna get you down. You're gonna fall off the wagon whenever you're living this purposeful life, and you're gonna get beat up sometimes. But just keep limping forward if you have to. Just keep going forward and keep driving towards that purpose. Don't be afraid to change that purpose if you need to. But make sure whatever you're doing it purposefully and on purpose. So, just like Tim said, if you have anything you need, just reach out to us, and we'll be glad to help you in whatever way that we're capable of doing. So, you guys out there, have a wonderful Christmas and a wonderful New Year, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Real Christian Manliness podcast. We hope you enjoyed our show. Now, if you could do us a favor, go over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. That way other people can find us easily in the rankings. And if for some reason you don't think we deserve 5 stars, give us whatever you think we deserve, but please explain why we got that rating in a review. Now make sure you subscribe and have a great day.